All right, so I am going to try to stay within my 15 minutes so that we can have lots of time, lots of room for a discussion. But I want to start actually by sharing a game that I play quite often. It's a logic game, and I think about it anytime I'm contemplating sort of a big initiative or a model or a system. And the way it works is I project that model forward to the highest level of possible success. And I ask myself what it would look like. And I ask myself, would it be enough? Right? If it was wildly successful, would it lead to the level of change that the world needs? And if the answer is no, it usually is no, right? I say, okay, well, what can I do differently? How can I do more? And how can I do better? And the reason I'm sharing that with you is because to me, that's what ethical leadership is, right? It's acknowledging that our models and our systems are not enough, right? And it's accepting the challenge that we have to figure out how to do more and we have to do better. Now, many of the presenters during the forum this week are doing amazing innovation and disrupting outside the models and the systems. And some of them are on this panel right now. And I think it's just extraordinarily important for them to do that work. But I want to suggest to you that it is also important for those of us who are working within traditional systems, higher ed and K through 12, to also innovate and disrupt within the systems. Mostly because there are so many resources wrapped up in these systems that can be retooled and realigned. But also because our systems still have some trust and for the moment, some credibility in terms of the masses still coming to us, right? So we have this opportunity to find spaces within our systems to make change, to do more, and to do better. And I want to suggest to you that experiential learning is one of the spaces that is particularly ripe. And by experiential learning, I mean all of the types of applied opportunities that take students outside of traditional academics. So, often we talk about internships, mentored research, global engagement, service, could be entrepreneurship. And I'm going to talk specifically about projects today. Now, two of the reasons why I think you should consider experiential learning. First, it is increasing in popularity. So at least in higher education, it's becoming a differentiator. Students are starting to look for experiences and access to experiences. Employers think about, internships and different types of applied evidence, and parents as well. So it's becoming more and more popular and important. However, it is completely unregulated. There are no high stakes tests. There are no standards. There are no rubrics, standardized rubrics. It's really an open frontier. And because of the definition is dynamic, it's about sort of engaging students, it literally is inviting all of us to come out and play. And by play, I mean design. I think of our portal, which I'll share with you, as a playground. So you'll hear me referring to this as a playground. I have decided not to share our portal with you until I'm done. And then I'll put it up and we can talk about the back end. We can talk about the how, the details as much as you want. But I want to grab your imagination. If you want to close your eyes as you listen to this, do whatever you need to do. But I want to introduce you to our playground. And I want to do it with you as a student first, and then I'm going to bring you back in as a global partner. So imagine you are a student learning during the pandemic. Perhaps you're like my kids, you're fully remote, maybe hybrid, or maybe you're lucky enough to go to school. But regardless, you're probably pretty fried, right? You're probably fatigued from the stress and the demands. But at the same time, you're really restless, right? And you're yearning for something inherently important and exciting. You stumble into my playground and you immediately look around for a set of rules, but you don't see any, right? Instead, you're just drawn into the space. And imagine just a big, open, well-lit, almost like a museum space that has installations throughout. And we'll think of these as project spaces. They scope out opportunities for you to do projects. And you're immediately just drawn into the number and the diversity, and you just start to wander around and let your curiosity guide you. And you browse and you read and touch. And as you wander, you just search for things that catch your attention. You see traditional research invites you in to explore diseases and crystals and enzymes. You see hands-on robotics, 3D printing, developing apps. There are sort of installations around public health that invite you to explore data and populations and issues. And you just continue to wander, and you can feel yourself just excited and interested, and sort of your energy is heightening. And then you come across a global section. And you see all of these different spaces that are organized first by country, and then by what are called NGOs, right? So these are community-based organizations that sort of share their work and they share their mission. And you find yourself browsing through these really fascinating areas of work in Uganda and Nigeria, Ghana, places that you've heard about before, but you've never really explored. And then you come across projects related to rural Tanzania. And this is where you sort of land, right? You read about this organization called Hope Revival Children's Organization, or HRCO. And you read about their work related to women's empowerment, which is something you've never really thought about. But you see a link to an ebook that you can read about the formation of the project. You start seeing projects that students have already done that you can interact with. So you're seeing videos, profiles of girls who have been supported through projects. You read about a bicycle project where girls are given bikes to be able to go to school, and you learn about the dangers that they deal with. And you find yourself just being pulled into these fascinating projects that are going on. And then you read about this reusable pad project. And you learn about how in rural Tanzania, when girls have their periods, they don't go to school. And so they're missing out on about a quarter of their education. And many drop out. And still others are dealing with health issues because they're managing their periods with really unsafe materials. And then you learn that there's a project that was actually started by one of our UB students who had gone on study abroad. And you get to hear from the girls who have participated in how it's changed their lives. And you see that the project is evolving, and now there's a second project, and students are invited to get involved. And so before you know it, your adrenaline is sort of pumping. You're all excited. You don't know why. You've never thought about this topic before, but you decide to hit that red button at the bottom that says express your interest and get started. And you're on your way. Next thing you know, you're being prompted to do all of this preparation. I guess it's not surprising to you because you really didn't have any context or any background. So you're actually happy to sort of immerse yourself in some preparation, but you find yourself exploring the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Never heard of those either. But suddenly it makes a lot of sense, and you're able to make connections with this project. And you're ready to actually propose something specific. And when you meet with your mentor, who happens to be me, we end up deciding that you can explore the medical aspects of this project because you want to be a future doctor. And how wonderful to be able to explore this. And then through a Zoom call, you find yourself connecting with Stephen Marwa, who is the head of this organization. Here you are in Buffalo, New York. He's in Musoma, Tanzania. There's a 7-hour difference, but there you are on a call. And he wants to know about you, and he wants to know about your interests, and he offers to connect you with a physician in Tanzania to explore these issues further. And thanks you, because your contributions will help him build capacity with his project. You are a little overwhelmed, a little nervous, but you don't remember being this excited, and you just can't wait to get started on this project, right? Now, how many of you wish you could just keep being that student, right? And dig into this project and see where it takes you. That's how I feel almost every day. But we can't stay there because I only have a few more minutes, and I want to bring you back as Stephen Marwa, right? So now I'm going to bring you back to our playground as the founder or as the executive director of this organization. When I first met you, Stephen, years ago, and invited you in to engage with our students, you were a little suspicious, right? As a small NGO, you spent your time seeking grants and donors and sponsors, trying to find ways to continue your work. So this idea of engaging with students from the University of Buffalo seemed a little suspicious, especially since you learned that we can't give you direct contributions, right? But you were open. And when the idea of a sanitary pad project was brought by one of our students who had visited with you during a study abroad, you had to admit it was an exciting idea. The student actually went ahead and did a GoFundMe and suddenly supported you to go and get trained and to bring women from your community to get trained. And since that time, that project has continued to grow. And more students have come, probably about 20, 25 students now, students from UB, also students from SUNY, who have brought ideas and resources through those ideas. How your community has developed has been unbelievable to behold. You yourself talk about an energy and a momentum that is palpable now as the community sort of sees the opportunity to grow and develop. And as more surveys are done and more of opportunities for the community to talk about their priorities, these projects keep going. And just this morning, you sent me a video of a new brick making machine that we were able to give through these projects just this last week. And the community is beginning to think about the structures, the safe house, and the latrines that they want to build. And so you have learned to be open to the students and their gifts and their talents and their ideas that come forth. I wish I could take you back as the professors, right, as the organizations. But I will tell you, this past summer, we did have an opportunity to work across our state University of New York system, 64 campuses, to create a remote program where students were able to explore the SDGs, develop some storytelling skills, and then work with NGO partners like Stephen. He was among the partners. And the projects were just amazing, and many of those students have gone on to want to do more. So where I need to sort of wrap this up, and then I am going to show you our model, and we can talk about how, is to bring that same logic game right back and to say, what would it look like? What would it look like if this was fully actualized? Since the pandemic hit, I am nonstop harvesting new projects and working to engage students. I mean, this has become just huge. And when I envision my playground fully actualized, best case scenario, I see every student, every learner having an opportunity to engage in a project that just speaks to their soul, right? Speaks to their curiosity, their sense of purpose. But I also see in that playground an opportunity for every need, for every challenge, for every community partner to be able to frame those as opportunities for student engagement. to embrace the interests, the gifts, the talents that students have. And I imagine this playground becoming more dynamic and more generative as capacity continues to build and new opportunities for engagement continue to come to play. And as I think about this, and as I work to cultivate it and support it and nurture it, I say to myself, absolutely. Would that be enough? Would that lead to the change that we need? I see students becoming agents of change. I see people wanting more, and I see everyone wanting to do better. And that continues to inspire me to create systems and models that can do this while at the same time supporting the very practical needs of our organizations and our classrooms and our programs. And so I will share all of that practical with you first, but I wanted to start by just sort of saying it's that big and it's all there. It really is all there for us to sort of design and play. So with that, I think I'll stop, and I'm going to try to share my screen and pull up our portal, which is our playground, and hopefully get ready for your questions and comments.
Sorry, my video stopped for a second. Clicked the wrong button. Mara,
yes.
In prepping for coming and having the honor of attending this session, as a panelist, I read some of the articles that Bill had shared with us, I think through your directing, and I happened to see the project portal this morning. And, you know, the one thing I wrote down in my notes as a quote was, I just wish they would come ready to play. And you were saying it in light of university students, I imagine, based on your current context of where you work. And as a high school assistant principal, I couldn't agree more. And I oftentimes reference our early childhood program as like, oh, why don't we just do that with the Reggio Emilio model and stuff like that in the high school? And, you know, I'm in the system as you reference, and we have to work within the system. So in short, I guess my question is just like, how do you see, like, what are the efforts as high school administrators or people who are leading some of the charges in these high schools to help facilitate that shift so they see that added value that you just mentioned in terms of experiential learning? And it's not, you mentioned you had 2 kids in one of your articles that are in college and they've gone through the AP programs and all that stuff. And it's a delicate balance. So I'm just curious, what efforts have you seen happen or heard about that are happening in the younger grades, whether that's in high school or middle school or even elementary down to early childhood, that have taught you the kids who are ready to play? I don't know if you have any insight to that or examples of it that you've seen in your professional work.
Yeah, I think I think the pandemic creates an opportunity. So I am finding students who normally would be too busy fulfilling all of their requirements and doing all of their honors classes and everything else. Suddenly, because there are no internships and because there are sort of those things that they were typically going to do, they're sort of open, sort of desperate, but I see the desperateness as desperation as an openness. So I am such a, I'm very practical, and to me, the fact that everybody's obsessed with college, they're obsessed for the wrong reasons. I mean, it's ridiculous. We won't go there, but they're obsessed, and the parents are obsessed and the students are obsessed. And so the fact that in colleges, we are moving in this direction, some of us more creatively than others, I think high schools can use it, right? Because as long as parents and students think that it's giving them an edge and it's getting them in, I think that can be used as a space to build this out. I mean, that's the beauty. As long as sort of at the outputs, you're getting the stuff that folks traditionally want, you can add all of the exciting stuff. So, you know, our model that I have up here still delivers all of the things that the parents and the students want, right? The impacts. It still gives you the stories for your college, your college application. It still gives you all of that. But actually in this world of experiential learning, authenticity is going to get you further than these contrived scenarios that check all the boxes. And authenticity comes from you. It comes from what makes you special. It comes from your story. So I think this really allows us to do that work. I'm driving myself crazy coming up with projects because I think projects find their dream students. And I have to tell you that the most exciting project I have right now is called Exploring Your Best Failures. You can see a post that I did on that. I said I wanted to go to a best failure conference. I don't want to go to any more best practices conferences. I want to go to best failures. Students coming out in droves, not because of, not because of grad school. It just speaks to them. They want to explore their perfectionism. They want to explore their fears. I think we all do right now. So I think, that's a long-winded way to say, grab them however you can. If it's the promise of college, if it's the promise of whatever it is that they think they want, this can get them there, but it can also give them so much more. So just very quickly, I was going to show you, we use digital badges, which are really exciting. You can see my screen.
Yes.
I should have asked.
Yes.
Yeah. So, anyone who's interested in sort of the nuts and bolts, you can build systems that give you all those things that everybody wants, right? The holy grail, all the data, all the outcomes that you want. But it's how they get there. And that's where all the sort of the meaning is. So I hope that answered your question.
No, definitely. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mara, I'm wondering, are you finding that there's a set of characteristics of students who benefit the most from this kind of experience?
Mm-hmm.
How would you describe that student?
Yeah, from a data perspective, we're just really sort of delving in, high impact practices in general, which is sort of the name for the really high impact experiential learning activities. And there's a lot of research from AAC&U. These are especially powerful for students who are not feeling connected and who are in need of more engagement. So often students from backgrounds where they haven't had a lot of exposure to mentoring and to a lot of the engagement. I find absolutely everyone can benefit. They vary in terms of where they start. On our website, we have a stories page. So as part of our process, so our process is PEARL, which is prepare, engage, and add value, reflect, and leverage. Everybody goes through that same process. But the leverage piece is we have them tell their stories of their journey and where they want to go with it. And so, if you start to read some of these, everybody's journey is different. But everybody, sort of is ready to grow and is ready to learn and challenge their assumptions. So I would honestly say that absolutely everybody can benefit. The hardest students sometimes, so I will share this with you, is, our model, my favorite part of our model is the add value piece, because you could do just about anything as a project, but it has to culminate in something that's meaningful to some identified audience. And that I'm finding is the real stretch space for students, especially the high achieving students who are used to clarity. It drives them crazy. In fact, UB just did a story that came out yesterday. I think it's on my LinkedIn, on a student who wanted to get involved in the PAD project, high achieving student. She just couldn't understand what I meant by she had to add value. She just wanted to give me reports. She wanted to give me, something that she synthesized. And I said, no, what are you going to contribute? And I find that our high achieving students sometimes get uncomfortable with what they see as ambiguity. They have to own it. They have to shape it. I'm here to help them. I'm here to support them, but it's their journey. And I think that's really hard for students, but they really appreciate it when they get through it, and they really have that sense of pride and ownership. So when students get a badge at the end, the digital badge, it actually sort of has their project linked to it. So you click on it and you get to see what they did, and often a video or something sort of dynamic. So any student can benefit, but the students who are used to the structure and the clarity often struggle a little bit for the good.
Right.
For the good.
Hey, Mara, question as well. I know you may have spoken deeply about this, but you're seeing in this space now that a lot of universities are shifting away from the traditional entry-level testing, the SATs, the ACTs, US. I think the big one that came out publicly about it. Do you see experiential learning coming in full circle, replacing standardized testing, which I think personally is needed more than ever before, and kind of closing that equity gap?
Yeah, I do, because I think experiential learning, again, it gives you everything that you need for that, that colleges need for security. Like, it can still tell you lots about that student in terms of their preparation, but then it also speaks to whether they're going to be able to utilize the resources that you're offering, the initiative, all the things that we look at in terms of student success. So our process, as students do the preparation, they're getting the necessary context and skills. You can build out as preparation as much as you want, right? You can make that a whole semester. You can make that a whole year. But then they're reflecting, they're connecting it back to their academic and professional goals, and they're setting some plans, their intentionality of how they're going to build. So it's not just the project, right? It's embedding it in all these other things. So I think experiential learning is exciting because it can give you so much of what you want and more than what you've been getting, but it does it in this dynamic, it does it in sort of a dynamic way. So yeah, I think especially with these badge systems that allows you to submit your evidence, it's all there, the metadata is there. It becomes a really powerful way to sort of show everything. So here are our stages, setting goals and intentions, gathering feedback from mentors and partners, a tangible product, critical reflection, weaving your experiences and growth, and building a plan. I mean, like, who doesn't want a student to do all of that? It makes it easier than to connect all the resources. So much in higher ed is we develop all of this stuff that we want to give students, but then how do we connect with the students, right? They have to be ready. And so much of this is getting students ready. And if you watch that little video, what it suggests is that experiences aren't, they're not procured, they're not collected, they're activated, right? And the more capacity the student has, the more they can see the opportunities around them and the more they can leverage those. And I think that's sort of true of higher education in general. We offer so much, but the student has to activate that. And that's sort of more of the process stuff.
Mara, I wanted to share, since you were talking about the Pearl system, how that relates to my grade 4 students. Because when I was reading all about your research and your project, I started thinking about how at my school, we're an international baccalaureate world school. So this, of course, looks quite different when you scale it back down to working with 9-year-olds. But they really, whenever you introduce these different, challenges people face across the world, we tied into our unit of inquiry and how they can help. And they really want to dive into this to the point where their parents ask, how can we follow up with this in secondary, in the middle years program, the diploma program, and then moving on to college. So I love seeing the scale of this and how this is what we can do with, university students and graduate students. But it's also really uplifting for me to see it in my own classroom, and how, of course, ours is a little different from Pearl, but we're, doing the action cycle and encouraging the kids to really take action, even if that's on a local scale. So I've had students, when I was looking at your project, I was reflecting on the things that my kids have done. And I've had students really notice that there are kids in the local area that, lack supplies, and of course, school supplies. And of course, this is, a very primary basic need, but they looked at the local community, but then also the global community. So they ran a little project where they were collecting specific supplies, books, just to read for fun, school supplies for schools in our area. So we're in right outside of Dallas, Texas, in Westlake. But then they also wanted to contribute to schools in Bolivia because they knew that I had traveled there and installed some water filters and led that course. So they were really inspired by something that they knew was happening with Shoulder to Shoulder. So I loved reading about your projects and seeing how this really can be scaled back for elementary, but then also inspire kids as they move on to university. So
Sarah, you've gotten me so excited because so I'm a cognitive psychologist, but I started my career working with the local school. So I was K-16 partnerships, but I actually wrote a book with my daughter when she was 7. You can't find it anywhere. I kind of just did it and moved on, but it was so cute. It was called Wiggle Your Power. And it was all about how your power comes from first developing your own gifts and talents, but then focusing on the needs of others. And we did a summer camp around it with 7 to 9-year-olds. And they got seed money through the registration fees. And they learned about different needs in the community. And then they got to decide how they can make an impact through donations, but also then through service. And I actually think elementary school students are the ideal group because they have high degrees of confidence and empathy,
yes,
right?
Definitely.
They just want to do things. And so I 100% agree. I think that is and you can focus on this notion of agency and power without getting too deep in content, right? So things like cooking, things like doing service, and the SDGs are just a wonderful frame for all levels to sort of focus in. So thank you for sharing that. It makes me, I thought that was such a great group. And at the time, my vision was to keep going, and sort of turn that into social entrepreneurship contests and sort of letting students learn. But that notion of your power is something I think really important too, right? Because there's so many different ways you can have an impact. And I don't think students or anyone right now feels, like they can really have an impact. And I think opportunities for students to develop, that sense of agency, as well as a process and a practice, of how do you want to do it? And for us, it's Pearl, you prepare and then you keep building on it. The leveraging is important too, right? Because we do things and then we cross them off our list and we move on. And, students in university, you're lucky if they put it on their resume and then they move on to the next thing. So that idea of how do you continue to build? How do you leverage? How do you let it sort of seep in and continue to build on it? That's really powerful too. And someone mentioned one of our former students, Pemba, being on one of the calls. She decided to go back to Nepal. And then based on that, she got involved in a Tanzania project. And based on that, she got involved in AmeriCorps Vista. So the students who do this stuff and do it really well are the ones who end up looking into scholarships, looking into fellowships. They want to build on it. And that's so exciting. So yes, early is when we should start them. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank
Mara,
Yes.
I have a question. And yes, I think that that age of students will be great to, get involved at the moment virtually. It's a great idea. And talking about local communities, I would like to learn, I loved this project Masks to the World that is just recently developed so fast. And for example, for these communities you're working in, how would you recommend to help communities to be sustainable? Because you have helped for a while, for 10 years or more, right? But how would you advise local communities to get to a point when they are sustainable, engaged with the students, with the faculty who have visited them, but also working on their own? So we can look for different and also to help other communities in country or in other countries, right?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I'm going to put the portal back up and just show everybody one particular area. So with our Tanzania work, so if you explore the projects at the very bottom, we also have this category, which is what I've been talking about today. So these are the global NGO projects that keep growing. I keep adding them every day. But the answer to the question is, our students are there to add value, and the best projects come from getting close and understanding, the needs, just like wiggle your power, I guess. So what has worked really well with our Tanzania project, it's working on community surveys to understand what the needs and priorities are of the community. And so the organization really led this, we just helped. And so if you go in here, you can read or you can look at some of the projects the students have done. But these surveys, you can go in and look at the survey. Questions came from the community and we helped, and then the students helped put it together in a format. But what's happened is these have revealed priorities and needs related to water and sustainability that are now driving projects that the community is really focusing on. So for example, if you read through this, you're going to see that what ended up coming out of here is that the latrines in the schools are a huge issue. They use open pit latrines. They don't even have those. There's open defecation, which is causing all sorts of health issues. And some of the schools are being closed. And so rather than doing all these little projects, what came out of this was, wow, you really need to fix your own schools and latrines, which is what led to, I'm going to stop and see if I can show you something super cool, which is what led to us actually focusing on a brick making machine. And just today, let's see if I could get this to work. Just today, I got this. Can you see this video?
Yeah.
This morning, I woke up and this is what I got. So I did a GoFundMe campaign and we bought them a brick making machine. Today, they're having the orientation. So talk about sustainability. They don't need grants. They're going to make their own bricks and they're going to sell bricks, which then can support their own community projects. And now we have an engineering students who are helping to innovate eco latrine design. They get to test out with their own bricks. I mean, is that the coolest thing ever?
Yeah.
This machine was less than $1,000, which is a lot of money. But think about what this symbolizes in terms of this communities. They're literally building the foundation for their own growth. And then they're teaching other people. Yeah. And so, this idea of adding value is huge. These aren't our, it's not our place to fix anything. It's listening to what the community wants, listening to where the priorities are, and then adding value through collaboration. And then it continues to build and it continues to build. Isn't that the coolest thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mara, the thoroughness of all of this and the quality of it and the need for it and so on is just undeniable. I'm wondering though, as I'm looking at Brian and Wendy and Corey and Danae,
yeah,
there's a hidden issue that and it's really interesting. Sarah, thank you for sharing your perspective. And And where I'm going with this is in your school, an IB school, it's kind of built in and it welcomes these kind of projects. I gotta believe people that are in more traditional schools are saying, where is the time? How do we do this? How does it, we're all running from algebra to science to English to language. I mean, we can't get out of our own way. Mm-hmm. And then it's 3 o'clock and we're running because we've got to get to play practice or we got to get to sports. For some of us, there's a little bit of reprieve in that because of the virus. Whether that's a silver lining or not, I'm not sure. But am I right, panelists? Are you guys thinking this is awesome, but how do we do, when would we do this? I'm wondering if maybe a couple of people can respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, I've wondered that, like, how do we begin to integrate? How do we build these relationships? How much mentoring time is needed, especially as you're starting to build the structure, right? You have the structure there and it's in place, but to get it going, and we work with middle schoolers. So getting it going for that age group, how much, people power do we need to foster these relationships, maintain them, help the kids with their process? That's the part where I'm trying to figure out how to do that.
Should I answer, or do you want to?
I don't know. Anybody else thoughts on this? Am I on to something here where there's a logistics challenge?
Well, I would say definitely. And I know in the high school arena, I teach 1 AP class and 2, dual enrollment engineering classes. And I'm really bound by a curriculum that has more information than I have time to even, part. But so my mind is like spinning with, okay, what could I cut out to kind of fit this in? But there isn't a lot of room for trial and error either, or for making mistakes. Cause it's like, if I were to put something like this in, it's got to be good. And it's got to be, it's got to fit into my little, okay. So I knock out 3 weeks worth of material. I've got to know that this is going to be, this is going to work. Whereas a lot of, there's so much trial and error that, you almost wish you could have a whole year of a class just to explore and try things and let students, kind of, work on that, kind of play in that playground, I guess. But without that, it's really tough for a high school teacher, I think, to try and integrate something in, where it's got to succeed in a short amount of time, that you can do. So yeah, I think, Bob, you're right. Although I think most teachers that teach in a traditional setting long for putting more experiences in, and they long to see how can I make space for that. But there's not a lot of, I guess, maybe resources for, I don't think there's a lot of resources for us to figure out how to do that.
Right. And Mara, you don't have to have a silver bullet on this one. But
I do. I want to share.
Okay, go ahead.
So we don't expect the teachers to be the ones to do this. The assumption is that you have to squeeze more into what you're doing. So when we built our model, and we didn't have it, we built it from scratch, and there are only 3 of us. We didn't have any extra resources to do it. We designed it to fit our university. And so that's why I didn't want to show you it right away, because then the questions are, well, how do we do that? But we built it so that the faculty don't run any of this. I never even said that the faculty have to mentor these, right? I mentor some of them. We have graduate students that mentor some of them. Evan's going to be working with some of our students. So the process of Pearl is what guides the students. They're going through the preparation, they're going through the engagement, and we have mentors that sort of support them through. The more you figure out what you want them to do, the less you have to sort of hold their hand, right? So the structure itself can sort of guide them through. That's why digital badges are fun, because you can sort of set it up so that it guides the student. But what you can do is think about your projects in terms of relationships that you already have, areas of focus that are meaningful to you, and you invite students in, and you don't have to get it right. This is playing. There's nothing bad that's going to happen, right? And so you can do it after school. You can do it over break as a virtual opportunity to get some kids doing. You can invite some parents in. Like, this is not high stakes, scary, get it right stuff. This is like play and get excited, and bringing people in who feel that way, and setting it up so that there's no failure. Like, at the end, you're going to have students with some ideas, woohoo, and you're going to bring people together and listen. Or you're going to have students who make some videos, and there is nothing high stakes about. There's nothing that can go wrong. As long as the students are working towards this idea of doing something that's bigger than themselves. So I would suggest not trying to put it within, that framework that is so important in high stakes, and because that's going to suck the life right out of it, right? You want to be able to nurture it in this sort of new spirit that is something quite different.
Mara, thank you for that. That's real. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but that comment, I think, is one of hope, and is one that I think is asking all of us to be creative and refuse to be trapped in the belief that students can't learn unless we're holding their hands and giving them a paint by number prescription through their education. So thank you for that, and thank you for this whole session. Obviously, we could go much longer. However, there was some intent in keeping the sessions fairly short, and by design. And one of that is the idea of what the purpose of the session is, and it's really meant to inspire. So I'm really, again, Mara, thank you for all of it, but thank you for that final comment. And to help you in that inspiration, this session's being recorded, and I'm not quite sure what this means, but people tell me produced. So I don't know what that means, but I think it means that it's going to be available to you in about a week or so. And it could be something that you could use with your colleagues. The idea is to take this session and give it to you, and have you take it to others and others, and take this wonderful seed of hope, I think, in education that Mara has given to us, and see if we can take that to our colleagues as well. So Mara, thanks so much. Panel, thank you so much. You brought such a great, I think, dimension to this idea, and let's go forward with it.
Yeah, just a quick note that I think everyone already had it, but I tried, Mara, as you were talking, I was trying to put all the resources you mentioned on that resource sheet there. So you could feel free to add, but any of the articles that you mentioned, the Pearl model, the student portal, all of that should be on that link right there. So all of you feel free to connect with each other, but also you have all the resources that Mara mentioned as well.
And Bill, maybe what we can do through Shoulder to Shoulder is, after a few weeks and after we produce this, is we can bring everybody back and even invite more people into this conversation and get people talking about what ideas they have for their particular school models.
Yeah, I would love for this to be, a class over the break or a class in the spring where we can get teachers together and say, okay, we have this model. Let's start creating together. It'd be really fun. And then maybe we can bring Mara back a few times. It doesn't sound like you have too much going on, so I'm sure we could bring you in for a few sessions.
I'm really excited to explore possibilities. So
that's wonderful. Yeah. It's great work, Mara. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good
Bye-bye.